This super chat says the pressure is more at Chelsea rather than Man United because they invested so much in the squad in one season, like Enzo, Mudryk, and so forth. Do you guys think it's a more pressure job going to Chelsea than it is Man United?
I mean, I understand, because what he's saying is because of the spend, is you can say, well, look, you've got £1 billion squad, you should be doing more. Where you look at Man United and you see their squad, of course, over time they've spent £1 billion, but on paper they're in, I think, a much worse shape. But it's not Maresca's fault that, you know, managers before him have spent all of this money, so therefore he should have these lofty expectations. Like I said earlier, the money was spent poorly. So, but yeah, I can't say you can look at that and say expectations overall are higher at Chelsea than Man United just because of that. The pressure is there from the media and the fans, and I think it's the spotlight is bigger on Man United.
And no, I'm not talking about Lee Gunner. Lee Gunner isn't a Man United fan. Why would he be tweeting about Man United? You don't listen, bruv. I'm not. It's not. I was talking about a Man United fan. It was weird, crazy, and he's not a YouTuber. I don't know what you'd call him. But he's not a YouTuber. That said that. Yeah, I get the pressure that's there. It's definitely one of the hardest jobs in England at the moment, the Chelsea job, because as you say, interestingly though, if Chelsea fans who say that Arteta hasn't won an FA Cup because it's in Emery's squad, if Enzo does well next season, then you'd have to praise Poch, right? If Enzo wins the trophy year one, that's Poch's trophy, right? Or how does it work now? But do you think one thing I do think is beautiful about it is the way Chelsea have been very forthright in briefing the press that they are copying your model, Potsy. Well, what do you make of that?
Yeah, it's mad, really. They spent most of the time slating it. Oh, phases, project, process, and then, I think I'd quite fancy a process now. It's like, what's going on here? Like, this is mad. I don't get it. Like, I've always questioned it myself. You know that, right? I've always questioned the process. I want to win. I don't want to take another 5 years to win. But now Chelsea are looking at Arsenal and they're like, oh, maybe that's what we need. Now, I don't know why, personally, because we haven't got across the line yet. So maybe we will next season. I hope we do. But I think if you're spending that much money, for me, if you've got £1 billion, I'd rather go get a win now manager that has a CV that says I can win and go and bring in some players that can win now.
How long has the process been, Potts? Because it was 5 years. Can you see Chelsea fans?
4 years. Yeah, 5 years.
Can you see Chelsea fans going that long without winning? No.
But you ask them, mate, and they're like, yeah, we get it. We totally understand. We're not under Roman anymore. Act like it then, because you don't. You're chucking managers away. You're chucking projects in the bin. Like, it's mad. I don't get it. Yeah, like, honestly, I look at that squad and I think it's all right. I think it's whereabouts it should be. I think that top six was fairly good from Poch. That's about what it should be. But you speak to some of the Chelsea fans, they should be pushing Arsenal and City then. Next season, they should be third at the very bare minimum. Because I look at and they tell me Gusto, Reece James, Fofana, Badiashile, Caicedo, Lavia, Enzo, wait till he bangs. I'm still waiting. Wait till he bangs. Mudryk, Palmer, Jackson. Go on then. Go catch up City and Arsenal if they're that great. I don't think they are that great. I think they're about top six. That's what it should be. They've had injuries, I get it. I totally appreciate that James is a quality player and was injured. Fofana's a quality player, has injury problems. Obviously, Lavia's not kicked a ball yet for Chelsea, and he's a baller when he does stay fit. I get that. But I don't think that that's the reason that they've been so shockingly bad. So, honestly, man, like, the Chelsea fans will get rattled like this guy. Danny's nervous. Watch out. We're back. This is what they told me when Potter was here, though. And Poch... now it's Maresca. What's the difference? I don't get it.
What you said, Dan, I mean, I've had a lot of Chelsea fans reach out to me, a lot in the group chats, that believe they've got a lot of world-class players and or world-class in the making. So, you know, Nkunku world-class, Reece James world-class, Gusto, Caicedo, Enzo, all on sort of the way to becoming world-class. So you would, if they're happy with this appointment, which most seem to be, and they've got that good a squad, they're gonna be busy this summer as well, which is interesting. You know, they're looking at a striker.
For a title, then. Should be a title challenge then for Chelsea.
I think Chelsea's expectations are going to have to be higher based on if the squad's that good and it's the right manager. There's also a story that's come out today that Michael Olise could be Enzo Marasca's first signing. It says Chelsea will push on with plans to launch a massive summer move for Olise. You're looking at around 60 million in a release clause. How good a piece of business, Lawless, do you think that would be for Chelsea to bring in Olise as the first marquee signing under the new regime?
Yeah, I think that would be a quality signing. Obviously, to see he's been at a club like Palace, and he's been balling. So to see what he could do potentially. Again, we're talking about the potential of Chelsea, obviously, rather than the reality we've seen. But the potential is really high. Like I said, question marks over the manager. But if it all clicks, it's a great signing. I know he's got some injury concerns, which they had big injury problems, Chelsea, last season. Now, I know Poch was given some of that blame for his coaching method. So we'll see if next season those injury worries are sort of alleviated. And then Olise can come in and hopefully get over his injury problems. But yeah, 60 mil, again, that's one of these players that has to come in and be, a key player in your first season. You can't be looking at him now as like the future. They desperately need some experience. And as much as, like I said, Olise is a good player. What is he? He's still quite young, isn't he?
22, 23, something along those lines.
23. So yeah, it's a good player, but there's still too much youth going on there. They need.
Can I just ask where he's going to play? I don't know how he's going to get in this team, because I'm being told that Madueke is one of the best one-on-ones that has ever existed. Mudryk is much better than Martinelli. You've got Cole Palmer, who is by far better than anything that Bukayo Saka can ever dream of being. So how's he going to get into this side? I can't see him getting a game. Maybe he'll have to go to Man United or somewhere else.
Chelsea is certainly an option for him because they want him, but so are Man United. But the talk is, again, from Chelsea fans and from the media that have been briefed, that Enzo, their new manager, is going to play. It's 4-3-3 that he plays. If he plays 4-3-3, I don't see where Enzo starts unless he's starting in the team over Nkunku, because in a 4-3-3, Nkunku's going to have to play off the striker or on the bench. Cole Palmer's going to have to play on the right-hand side of a 4-3-3. I don't see him playing central midfield. He's not a central midfielder. He's an attacking midfielder or right winger. The midfield I get would be Enzo, Lavia, Caicedo, if everybody's fit. So I do agree that based on the way that they say they're going to set up and the quality they already have at the club, if that quality is at the level they say, if I'm Man United, who are also linked to Olise, I'm saying, look, we've got a whole right-hand side that is essentially yours if you want it, for you to sort of step into and be the main man in, as opposed to being behind Madueke, being behind Nkunku, being behind Cole Palmer. He'll definitely be ahead of Mykhailo Mudryk. I wouldn't be surprised if he went this summer. He's been an absolute disaster of a sign-in. Could play 4-3-3 with a 10. What's 4-3-3 with a 10? You mean no number 9?
A false 9, I think they mean.
Because if it's it must be a false 9. Because a 4-3-3 with a 10 and 2 in midfield is a 4-2-3-1. But there isn't a great deal of difference between those formations anyway. People get bogged down on them. But listen, I think Olise is an excellent talent. I would hate for him to go to Chelsea, but I think there is a real big question, Lawless. Like, where would he fit in? Like, where would he actually play?
Yeah, we need to see as well, like you talked about Mudryk there. What are their outgoings going to be? Who is going to be surplus to requirements? Who are they getting rid of? And yeah, if some of those players, they are looking to go, say they do look to get rid of Madueke for some reason, and he just don't fit into how the manager plays, or he's not the best option, then yeah. But if they're just going to start stockpiling young talent again, then it shows they haven't really learnt their lessons. So that's why I know they're in the Conference League, so there's a lot of football to play this season. They need a big squad to attack both the Conference League and the Premier League. We found out it's not easy. We suffered in the league. Maybe that's what they're doing. They're building a big squad to win that Conference League.
Unfortunately for Chelsea, what's happening is they're turning into Arsenal a few years ago, and they hate it. They don't like it, and they're throwing their rattle out the pram. That's what's happening. When Arsenal were finishing 8th and 8th, they're now finishing 12th, and where were they, like 10th most of the season, scraped into 6th, and then they sacked their manager for that. Bizarre, but there we go. They're now turning into it, and they're wanting a process, and they're wanting a little bit more of excuses. As, we need a bit more time, please. Don't give us any pressure. Want a bit more time and a bit more of a project and a process. That's what's happening. And then what they're doing, if you've noticed, even in the chat now, is they're saying that they've got 5 or 6 world-class players, which apparently was what Arsenal were being laughed at for calling Saka world-class. Now they're calling Palmer world-class. They're calling Caicedo world-class. They're calling Mudryk world-class. They're calling Nkunku world-class. But we're not allowed to say that Rice, Ødegaard, and Saka and Saliba are world-class, but they're allowed to say those players are.
Biggest defender right here, Don. Yeah.
There he is. There he is.
I said Maresca worked under Pellegrini at the start of the show, and I said that's not a ringing endorsement because the football was trash and our second season was a disaster. So don't use that as a hype, mechanism of.
I've got a question for Don as he's watching. If you sign Olise, because he's a first team player, who drops out your first team in the new 4-3-3 formation? Is it because he doesn't play on the left, Olise, so he can only play on the right? Who drops out your team? Because that means Palmer drops out, right? Or Palmer gets moved to the left. Why would you move one of the best players in the season from the sort of central right-hand side to the left? Where does he fit in, brother? Genuine question. Where would you fit him into that 4-3-3 if you get him?
I'm dying to hear that answer.
This here says, I see Nkunku, Palmer, Olise. I can see Sterling, Madueke, and Mudryk leave this season or at the latest next year. Wait, I mean, listen, that's also maybe you do that. Maybe you play a false 9, but then again, neither Olise or Palmer play on the left or rarely kick the ball there. So what you're then doing is taking 2 players who are. We know how good Cole Palmer is. He's been amazing this season, but that comes from the right. You're then changing his position. You've got Olise, who is famed for the right-hand side, cutting on his left, changing his position. For me, what you're doing there, Chelsea fans, and maybe it will work, but I want to throw this out. You all fumed last season at Poch putting square pegs in round holes. Surely, ahead of time, you're not advocating for another square peg in a round hole. Surely you're advocating for play people in their best position. So the question is, if you move to Enzo's 4-3-3, where does Olise play if you sign him? This one for me,
he's answered.
Work. Oh, what did he say? Let me find it here.
Is there?
Hang on. Here we go.
Don was the guy who flamed Poch for not playing players in their right positions. He's not playing them in their right positions.
Yeah, in a 4-3-3, it's sticky. He'll have to play a 4-2-3-1 with Palmer, Olise. But then if he plays the 4-2-3-1, who plays in the midfield? We know that Enzo and Caicedo can't play together. You said that Lavia, Don, you want to see him in that single 6 role because that's where he excels. So are you then going to sacrifice Enzo or Lavia? Because Caicedo's got to be a shoe in how he performed in the back end of the season. So what happens there in your opinion, my G? Again, do you want to hear your opinion? Look, I'd hate Olise to go to Chelsea on a personal level. I'd love him at Man United. But the question is genuine. Where does he play? For me, the way it reads right now, he's going to be on the bench. And that's not a problem. The only thing I will say, as a Man United fan, I think we can use that to our advantage to get him.
To slightly defend the Chelsea situation. Not that I like defending them.
Wow, that's a big 180.
I know. They do need a squad. So it ain't just about 11 players. Having said that, I think the best starting 11, I think it could be very, very tricky to get all of them in. Because like you say, you either mess around with the front 3 or you mess around with the midfield 3. And 1 or 2 of them are going to miss out and get very unhappy. So, yeah, man, it's going to be interesting if they do.
I said this the other week on the show when we were talking about Olise to Arsenal or Man United. And I said it makes more sense for Olise to go Man United because he's going there competing with Saka. I don't see the point of him going there to try and be a bench player. He should go where he's needed most. So even though it might be good for Chelsea to stockpile this talent, I don't think that's going to be good for Olise if he's not going in there as a club that clearly needs him for a particular position. So they can get excited what they want. If he's smart, he rejects that. If they can't clearly tell him, yeah, look, we need you for this role.
But maybe you do this, and I think this would be more sensible. Caicedo, Lavia, Palmer in midfield. But you sort of play the 4-3-3, how Ødegaard plays the 4-3-3, and Palmer is very advanced the whole time. And then you just do what I would do. I would, if I was Chelsea, I'd sign Olise, put him on the right. And I'd probably do that with the midfield. And I'd say to Enzo, you're holding bench, bruv, because he ain't good enough right now. So that's what
imagine that the player that the new manager was going to unlock. The new coach was going to, he's just benched.
That actually makes the most sense. That actually does make the most sense. That there, Caicedo, Lavia, Palmer. From what I've seen, that makes sense. And then obviously you got Olise 1 if they do get Olise. But for me, man, it's crazy. Like, imagine that, Enzo.
Do you think it's there's been reports that the ownership push players on managers in terms of you've got to play him. Do you think there's any truth to the ownership saying you've got to make it work with Enzo, you've got to make it work with the expensive signings, and they almost force Morasca into playing them?
I think it's feasible. I mean, we were hearing reports. When was it? We were hearing reports about Bowley going into the changing rooms and all of that stuff. So, from their minds, this was our star signing. We want to get the most out of it. We can't have this star player sitting on the bench. We're paying him a big wage. We paid him a big transfer fee. So while there's no clear-cut evidence, it's very believable, especially from Todd Bowley.
Yeah, certainly. This here says, sorry, we've done that super chat. We played 4-2-4-1. Palmer played same role as Dewsbury Hall, has this year in the most advanced midfield. Fair play. If that's what you think it will be, fair play then, my brother. You'll get them all into that team. That makes sense to me. The pressure is more on Chelsea right now rather than Man United. Sorry, already done that super chat there. So this here from Zane says, first Liverpool hired the Dutch Craig from Anfield Agenda, and now Chelsea are hiring the Argentinian Dan Lawless. It won't be long before Spurs hire the Greek Dan Potts.